Well, good evening, everybody. This is Mitch, and what you're going to see here is a replay of my recent appearance on Professor Bart Kay's channel. So sit back and enjoy it.
Thanks for joining us once again, boys and girls, attack helicopters, super intelligent teddy bears with the bestest of camouflage skills. And Mitch, my very special guest is Mitch today. Mitch, it's been a while. Been trying to sort of hook this up, and we got it together, and we got the technology happening. Nice to have you here, young man. Tell us your story from start to finish.
Well, I was born a poor white child in Philadelphia. How's that for the beginning?
Oh, very good.
In 1947, born May of 47, which makes me 76 years old, and I'm one of these guys that was a fat kid and always dieting all my life, always dieting, up and down, up and down. I'm a moderate to severe carbohydrate addict. I could always lose weight and I could always get to my goal weight, but when I got there, I lightened up a little and I started to slip a little treats in, a little carbs. I felt like I deserved a reward, and 8 months later, I'm 50 pounds heavier again. And I repeated that cycle. I stopped counting, maybe 15, 20 times from my 20s right on up to a year or two ago. I bought the first Atkins book back in 1973. He published it in 72, The Atkins Diet Revolution. If you think that we're vilified today, you should have been there 50 years ago and heard the stuff that I heard about that killer diet that was going to, but the doctors were against it. Nothing new, same as today. I went through that. Then the next diet came out. There was the Scarsdale diet. There was the Mediterranean diet. There was the Paleo by Cordain. There was the Zone diet by Barry Sears. And I kind of took the Zone diet seriously because Barry Sears was a very talented biochemist. And his job at the company he worked was inventing drug delivery systems. And I figure that somebody that knows enough about how to get a drug to a certain place in the human body should be smart enough to know about diets. And that diet was a pretty good diet, but none of them were sustainable over the long haul. I could get on them. I was motivated. The most I ever weighed was probably 210 pounds. I'm 5'10". I have a very light frame, so 210 pounds for me is 42-inch waist territory. It's fat. Then keto came along, which was the same diet, basically. It was still a low-carb diet. It was very highly regulated in the amount of carbs you could have, and I did well on keto. But the fruit and the nuts got me. Being an addict like I am, I would go to the store, I'd buy 3-pound bag of frozen blueberries with the full intention of eating one little custard cup full of them and a handful of nuts. And that was the end of the keto diet. I would demolish a 3-pound bag of blueberries in one sitting. And then, like all carbohydrate addicts, when I actually was given back control of my frontal lobe, I was able to enjoy the guilt and the shame and all the other feelings that you have after you've made up all these excuses why it's okay to eat all that stuff. So I did that. And then carnivore, I started watching the carnivore stuff. Started watching Ken Berry, Anthony Chaffee, Sean Baker, the Three Musketeers. And I decided in August of last year, a little over a year ago, I said, I know I'm a carb addict. I know that I have to stay away from carbs. As an alcoholic has to stay away from alcohol. There's no such thing as alcohol in moderation for an alcoholic. You can't do it. And I finally figured out that if I don't treat the carbs like an alcoholic does, the alcohol. So I went on a very beef, butter, bacon, eggs, fish, chick meat, but zero carbs. And I've stuck to it now for a year and a month and a half, 13 and a half months. What's happened to me, if you had told me a year and a half ago that this could happen, I would have said you were crazy, Bart. I would have said you're out of your mind. There is no way that I could ever weigh 138 pounds, which is what I weigh now. There's no way at 76 years old that I could start back at the gym, which I did 6 months ago, actually enjoy working out, which I never did, put on muscle like I've never had my entire life, and not be ashamed of my body anymore. I've even put pictures on some of my thumbnails of me with my shirt off, and I was the guy who wouldn't take a shirt off in public because when I was a kid, they made fun of me constantly, and it basically ruined me for life. You never get over that kind of stuff that happens when you're a kid. So I decided I had a drone YouTube channel. It was called Old Guy and a Drone. And I had that for about 3-4 years. And I did a lot of live streams. I love making videos. I'm kind of a closet cinematographer. I'm a tech like you. I'm a tech nut. I love anything technology, and it all kind of fit together. And I did the drone stuff. And then the government got involved. I don't know if you know much about that, but the government got involved and started regulating the drone business because all the big companies wanted to do drone deliveries, and us little guys flying our model airplanes and our little drones, they figured would be in the way. So the FAA got involved, created all kinds of drone regulations, and basically destroyed the hobby. It was a terrible thing. I had an accident about 2 years ago where I hit my head. I was at the gym, and I just overdid it. And then I overdid it in the sauna. I got lightheaded, passed out by my locker, hit my head on the bench. That led to a subdural hematoma, which led to brain surgery. And I have a huge, on this side of my head, right here, I have a huge scar. You can probably see it there, where they had to do a craniotomy on me, get the hematoma out, which was 2 centimeters thick. So it had really squished my brain, and I was having stroke-like symptoms. And it took me that kind of when I stopped doing the drone stuff, and it took me almost a year to get over that. And during that year, while I was regaining my balance, it takes a long time for your brain to fill back in and recover from that kind of thing. But after a year, I was fully recovered from that. And that's exactly the time I decided I need to lose this weight I just gained over this last year of inactivity, went on the carnivore diet. And about 6 months into the carnivore diet, I was down to about, I think, 150 pounds. And I said, okay, it's time to get back to the gym. And it took a lot of guts for me to go into the same gym where they wheeled me out of a year and a half before. But I went back to the gym, started working out. Everything I ever had wrong with me. And I had rheumatoid arthritis, kidney stones, eczema, every high blood pressure. The only problem I didn't have was any sugar-related problems because I always was low carb for most of my life. So my A1C it was always 4.95, 5.1, somewhere in there. I went back to the gym, started working out, enjoyed it, started doing, thanks to listening to you and some of the people like you who really know exercise, I decided that the high-intensity interval stuff was the best for me. I actually took your advice. I thank you for that. I started maximum of 8 reps, push as much weight as I could push, where I would bottom out at 8 reps. And if I could do 8 reps, I'd up the weight a little bit more. And I started doing everything. And I actually put on quite a bit of muscle, I guess, eating all the protein and fat and everything. So I am healthier and in better shape now after just a little over a year on carnivore than I have ever been even as a teenager. Even as a teenager. And I joke and say the last time that I weighed 138 pounds, I think I might have been in like 7th grade. You know, I mean, it has been that miraculous. So 6 months ago, like I said, I went to the gym. And then, you know, a couple of months ago, I said, you know, I've learned such a tremendous amount about medicine, about biochemistry. I'm fascinated by this. I know I don't even pretend to be at your level of knowledge of the mechanics of it, but as far as the mechanics of the systems and even quite a bit of the cellular biology, out of curiosity, I started studying this stuff years ago because I want to understand how everything works in the human body. So now I'm like a non-credentialed, no-degreed person who talks above my own doctor's head when I go in and see her. She can't follow me through the biochemistry that I talk. And especially when it comes to areas of lipidology, cholesterol, cellular biology, functions of the mitochondria, all that stuff. And I do understand it. And I listen a lot to your channel. I listen to all the doctors that are in our space, and they're very knowledgeable, and they're all pretty brave because they put themselves out on a limb doing what they do. And I said, you know, I got all the equipment. I have a YouTube studio. I'm able to talk and get points across. Maybe I should start a carnivore YouTube channel. So I did. I did about 6 weeks ago. And Old Guy Carnivore. I just changed the name of my drone channel from Old Guy in a Drone to Old Guy Carnivore. Left the old guy in there. I'm older now. And I did a video where I was aimed at my drone subscribers, and I had 1,300 of them, which you and I both know is nothing. Mm-hmm. But for me, in such a limited community as the drone guys, if you have 100,000 subs in the drone community, you are the equivalent of a 2 million sub person in the carnivore space. So it dawned on me. I said, wow, you know, the carnivore space has got a lot more potential audience for these messages. And I have something that nobody out there at this time has. And what I got is I'm 76 years old. And look what happened to me. And the one thing that so many people in their 60s and 70s and 80s have been missing is advice from somebody other than a hot-looking 18-year-old girl. You know what I mean? And the bigger guys in the space, the Ken Berries, the Sean Bakers. I'm 20 years older than Sean Baker even, and he bills himself as an old man, you know. And I said, you know, I'll bet you that the older crowd would love to hear what somebody their age happened to them as proof that it's never too late. So I published started off with a couple videos, and YouTube wasn't going to push my stuff out there. You and I both know how YouTube works, and they're not out there to make you a star. Mm. You got to prove something to them, and the way you prove something to them is you have to have a video that runs. You got to have one video that just takes off, and then their algorithm notices it, and they start pushing it out to people that maybe are not in your genre or people that they wouldn't normally push it to see maybe this kid's got something. So I did a video where I got down, I did on the floor, I did 15 push-ups. I took my little camera to the gym. I did 15 dips on the parallel bars. And I talked a little bit. And I put a picture of me without my shirt on the thumbnail. 50,000 views. Okay. I went from 1,300 subs. I have 11,358 subs now. And that's in 1 month. In 1 month. My biggest video, how to cook a chuck roast in a slow cooker, has 137,000 views right now. And to me, it was absolutely amazing. And the reception that I got from the people that have subbed and are watching my videos warmed my heart. It gave me a sense of purpose that I haven't had, Bart, for 10 years of doing nothing, you know? And I'm absolutely loving this. I just hope YouTube doesn't screw it all up for us. I'm sure you're familiar about the little hoorah that came up with Dr. Berg's little video yesterday.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
So here I am. Now my son doesn't call me dad anymore. He calls me, hey, YouTube star. Uh-huh. I'm still a little guy in the space, but I'm having a good time. And I think that maybe I'm motivating people, even though I can't do like Ken Berry does and give them medical advice and listen to their medications and their blood tests and all that. I don't want to do that stuff. But as far as trying to tell somebody how to handle their carb addiction, which is an unrecognized biggest problem in the diet space, period, end of story, in my opinion. I think that if our society treated carbohydrate addiction as seriously as they treat drug and alcohol addiction, we wouldn't be in this mess. But we're in this mess, and the temptation is everywhere. And we're a food-centric society that can't do anything without the food attached to it. We can't even go to a football game without having a tailgate party and a big cooler full of snacks to drag into the stadium with us. And if it wasn't for the food, half the people wouldn't even go to the football game. So I come at this whole thing from a carb addiction, kind of like Rob Sivas. That's his thing. And I think he's on the right track in so many ways as far as treating the addiction part of it. And that's where I'm trying to help people as much as I can. And all I really have to offer them is what I've learned over 50 years from my own experiences, failing and succeeding and failing and succeeding. And what younger people never get, they never seem to understand, is that that's where your real knowledge comes from as you get older. Nobody can teach that to you. You can't graduate from college at 22 years old and have the kind of knowledge you get from just being around a long time. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too long a dissertation there.
No, perfect. Excellent. So the YouTube channel is up on the screen right now. It's also in clickable format underneath this video, so you can go directly to the show notes and click directly on that. If you're not subscribed to Mitch's channel, which is, tell us the name of it again.
Old Guy Carnivore.
There you go. It's on the screen anyway for you. But there you go. Those are your orders. My Meat Militia is that you go and sub there if you're not already. And tally-ho, it's all good because we're all about the cross-pollination and the supporting each other and getting things going that way there. I would like to pick up on the YouTube's carry-on that's happening and the Eric Berg video that came out a few days ago. I was going to make a video about it. I may still, but since it's come up now, let's talk about it now. Why don't you, Mitch, give us your take on what we saw from Eric Berg, what he said, and what it means to those of us who have opinions other than the accepted one?
I didn't see it because I don't follow Eric Berg.
Neither do I, but I saw it because someone said, you've got to see this.
I won't get into any of the reasons why not, but I did one a year ago, but I caught him in a few things that I thought were, I don't know, that doesn't jive. You know what that's like. You know, yeah. I have this BS detector that's just on high all the time. Yeah. And the guy does have 11 million subscribers. And he has followers as loyal as I've ever seen. And I released a video about 3-4 hours ago because I didn't see anybody talking about it. I said, and I released a video with his picture with the tape over his mouth.
Yeah.
On the thumbnail.
Yeah.
And a big WTF.
Yeah.
Right on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's running right now. I mean, I'm close. I'm over 3,000 views already in a couple of hours. You know,
Awesome.
I mean, it's one of those that just took off. And
Cool.
and in that video, I actually pulled up his YouTube channel and recorded it for the video and went over his stats and even played a little of the video, the opening part where he takes the tape off his mouth and goes through a few slides talking about the World Health Organization or WHO, you know, and how YouTube, much like they did with the big C, are we allowed to say that word here?
Which we avoid even the use of the word.
Okay.
If someone does say it, it usually gets edited out in post, purely
Sometimes
because
when you say
it's a flag.
the big C, we think of a different word, but we won't think about that either.
Yeah, that word's perfectly okay here. We're okay with that one.
We've come full circle, Bart. I'm telling you, the thing, you know, we can say the things we never used to be able to, and totally innocuous stuff right now. We have to be so careful.
Yes, that's it.
But
and this guy says whatever he wants.
Yeah. Spank did that too. I shut him up.
Yeah.
So my take on it is, I got real aggravated when on first looking at it. Because I hadn't heard that this has actually been going on this isn't yesterday's news. This is old news.
Yeah. That
YouTube's been doing this, and this is not a new alliance. If there is a formal alliance between them and the WHO, I don't know that. I saw a lot of theater. I saw in that video, a lot of poor me, you know, poor me, I'm a victim. I saw a lot of that in that video. And I said to myself, oh, isn't this great, Mitch? You just get something to do. You just get something that's starting to take off. You're at it for a few weeks, and the owners of the stadium change the rules of the game on you. And that's been the story of my life in business, all my life. Every time I get something going, the whole world changes. We have a major economic collapse. Something happens. And something happens that's just too big for me to do anything about, or even have had the opportunity to plan in advance for it, because these kind of events always come out of the blue. So here he is, he's telling us all that basically, if you had to sum up the message, it would be, well, all you guys in the health space on YouTube, it's over. You're done. Nobody's going to ever find your channel. The algorithm's not going to push your videos anymore. And if somebody searches for the term keto or carnivore, they're going to be directed to somebody else's video, some vegan somewhere, who's going to extol all the reasons why you better not do that diet or it'll kill you. And I said, oh, God, this is great. So the first thing I did was I had a Rumble. I had an account on Rumble. I went and just started uploading all my videos to Rumble. I've gotten about 7 or 8 of them up there now. Because I think that might be the last bastion of free speech that's going to be left if this thing keeps going the way it does. And I know Ken Berry has a presence on Rumble, and so many other influencers now in all spaces are going to Rumble just as a backup for when YouTube gets so ridiculous that it's not worth, they got 1,000 times more customers than Rumble does, but Rumble's going to grow. So I said, all right, I can keep it going on both channels. I took my little 360-degree camera. I got a little Insta360 X3. I like to use those to record videos of me out walking or doing something like that. And the nice thing about the 360 camera is I can do all the editing in post and I've got the entire world photographed. I can pan from one scene to another. It's all on there. I don't have to be a cameraman. You just hold the camera out and it captures everything. So I said, you know what? I'm curious. We have this big hurricane, Hurricane Lee, that is going to miss us here in Florida, but it is off the coast of Florida now, about 500, and they've got all these tremendous rip current and high surf warnings. I said, I live 6 miles from the ocean. So I said, I'm going to take my 360 camera. I'm going to go out to the beach this morning. I got a little wireless mic I can clip on so it pass the ocean noises. And I'm going to record a video about this Eric Berg thing out there with the waves crashing and the sun rising. I thought, boy, this would really be cinematic. I'll give the carnivore community something they don't normally see. And that's a cinematic looking video. And I was so pissed off this morning about this, thinking about it. I ended up doing a 30-minute rant. I mean, a rant. I can rant when I want to, okay? So I get home and I download the footage I shot and I watch it in the editor, and I'm shaking my head and I'm saying, Mitch, you're coming off just like Eric Berg did. Poor Mitch. I said, there's no way, there's absolutely no way that I can put this stuff out there. It's embarrassing to me. And sometimes you don't realize it when you're saying things, how absurd it actually sounds to somebody that's not mad at the time. But I was just ashamed of what I did. And the way I came off, I came off like whining. And I said, nah, that's not me. That's not who I am. I think carnivore has changed my personality quite a bit too. I don't get as upset nearly as upset as I used to. I don't get mad. I don't ever get that feeling of my blood boiling like I used to get. So I actually only used 10 seconds of all the footage I shot. And that was of me standing in front of the waves. I had the camera behind my back. So it looks like I have a photographer behind me because the selfie stick is invisible. They actually have a algorithm that takes the selfie stick out of the picture and stitches it all together. It's incredible. So it looks like I got a cameraman standing behind me, taking a picture of me walking towards the surf, and these high waves are crashing in. And that was my opening. And that was the only thing I used from my little trip to the beach. So then I went and I made this video, just grabbing Berg's clips of Berg's video, the website stuff. And I did a voiceover. I just sat there and did a voiceover over it. Turned out about a 6-minute video, and I published it. And in that video, I said, we have a radio commentator here named Dan Bongino. You ever heard of Dan Bongino?
No, I haven't. No.
Dan Bongino is an ex-Secret Service agent that he was on Obama's detail. I mean, he's a guy that's been in government, and he's a conservative, and he's a great radio announcer and radio program. And he gets to the heart of everything. He's got insight into how the government works that most people would never have. And he has a rule. And his rule, he calls it the Bongino 72-hour rule. And when all these news flashes come out with all these stressful crisis type of headlines that are supposed to get you to, slit your throat right then and there, he says, use the Bongino 72-hour rule. He says, don't ever react to anything until it has a time to sit for a while, to sit for 72 hours. Because during that 72 hours, you'll find out that 90% of that stuff was bogus to start with and not even worthy of your aggravation or concern. So I decided, you know what? There are some things that just don't seem on the level about everything that he said. I need to just back off a little and investigate this and find out what's really going on. And that calmed me down, and I made my video, and I've been kind of halfway researching it the rest of the day. Most of what I learned about it, believe it or not, I've had 400 or 500 comments already on that little video. And I read every comment that I get on every video that I do. And what I learned from the people in those comments about Berg and his history gave me kind of a better understanding of his mentality, and it put that video for me into somebody who is basically looking for sympathy and whining, because it's very profitable to do that on YouTube. To get if I had known that this was not something that happened yesterday, if I had known that this was something that has been brewing for the past few months, I wouldn't have ever even gotten angry in the first place.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
So that's my take on it. My take is, yes, this stuff happens. It happened with the C disease. You couldn't put up a video without them slapping placards up on top of your video, correcting you every time you said something that you're wrong and this is wrong and that's wrong. The irony of it, Bart, and the real sad thing is we're right and they're wrong when it comes to diet and nutrition.
Yeah.
I've proven that to myself over my whole entire life.
Yes.
I've proven it to myself by learning about how the body works, how the different systems work, how the hormones, what their job is. And if I learned nothing in my entire life, I've learned that the total of human biology is so far too complex for a mere doctor to think that they can actually micromanage it and regulate it with exogenous chemicals.
Mm.
Every time that we put something in our mouth that comes from the drugstore, maybe we're helping a symptom, but from what I've seen, nothing that they're doing cures anything. And then you get to be a cynic about it. And you say, you look at the corruption and the money, and they don't want to cure anything. They want to addict people for a lifetime of dependence on chemicals. And why would they want to change anything? Why would they want to do anything other than what the average crooked politician does? And that is demonize whatever it is that you think is going to put you out of a job. And unfortunately, keto and carnivore, or low carb eating in general, if everybody started doing it, it would put almost $5 trillion worth of business in the United States of America now comes from the healthcare industry. 5 trillion. Okay. What would happen if none of the doctors or hospitals had a job tomorrow? The economy would collapse. What would happen if everybody decided, I'm going to eat cows tomorrow? I'm going to eat nothing but beef. 90% of the population would starve to death. There's not enough cows. It took us 70 years to wind into this mess that we're in. Unfortunately, when it takes you that long to create a mess, it generally takes you that longer to actually clean it up. And it has to happen in small stages, which is why what we're doing in our space, why we're getting a ball rolling that may gain momentum, but it won't be fixed until long after I'm gone, if it ever gets fixed. That's how I feel about it. Mm. I don't even know if that was an answer to the question you asked me. You asked me about Dr. Berg.
Yeah, well, it kind of was. It was a discursive route around the issues of censorious platforms who decide to take it upon themselves for whatever reason, be that for misguided views on what's good and right and proper, which would be just as bad, but it isn't that. Anyway, that's nothing to do with these platforms wanting to do the right thing at all. This is about control of the narrative. This is about what are you, Mitch? What are you allowed to hear on the interwebs? You are allowed to hear that everything that is put forward by the World Health Organization is indicated and science-based and correct, and it's looking after your best interests at the end of the day. So be thankful. Don't question the science, even though that's precisely how you do science. Never mind that, though. Don't you dare question it. You listen to the good grown-up folks at the World Health Organization who absolutely have your best interests at heart. And anyone who wants to publicly say anything that is contrary to what the World Health Organization has to say is therefore, by definition, wrong, because the World Health Organization somehow have become an inviolate canon by this methodology for some reason. I don't know why, but there you go. And if you get up on your soapbox and say anything that disagrees with what they say, that is a non-approved narrative. You are not allowed an opinion other than what the World Health Organization tells you your opinion is. I've often said that jokingly to people around me. Look, if I wanted your opinion, I'd have told you what it is. And that's exactly what we are being fed here. So for those that have missed out on the Eric Berg thing and what he's been saying and what it appears is going on, Eric is complaining, as Mitch says, about a number of his videos and potentially his channel as a whole being buried by the algorithm that YouTube is running. And his belief is because he's run afoul of this don't disagree with the World Health Organization thing. Now, obviously, he's visible. He's got 11 million subs. So, such a thing being in play is going to hit someone like Eric Berg before it hits someone a bit smaller, perhaps. By the same token, the reason that some of us are a lot smaller than Eric Berg is precisely because we have had things to say in the past about the World Health Organization, for example, and other self-claimed authorities of the same sort of ilk, and we have already been punished for that. And so what we are now doing is not growing with the organic, normal growth rate that our YouTube channel would actually grow by itself. We're allowed to do so. So we're taking care of...
Berg has been around since 2008.
Yeah.
So he's been around a long time.
Yeah.
I learned today that his videos show up in almost no generic searches.
Right. So if you type into Google
who's a well-known keto doctor, none of his videos come up. They've already had him kind of shadow banned, but he's got a following. And if you don't think his following is loyal,
they are.
He had 65,000 comments on that 1.5 million view video that he posted yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got through 100 or 200 of those comments before I got physically ill.
That video is now tracking 1.8 million, I think, but just before we came online is what it was.
Well, that's because I talked about it, so the whole world.
Of course it was.
Yeah,
there it is. Yeah,
of course, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Now this is as Mitch has said, and as I will repeat, this is by no means us saying that Eric Berg is great and we agree with Eric Berg on a number of ideas, because we don't. Eric Berg is just an individual who happens to have a very, very large following on YouTube. That's why he's the topic of it, and it's because it was his video that he made, not because we think he's great. I personally don't think Eric Berg is great. The other thing we need to be very careful of is throwing around the word doctor. Doctor this, doctor that, doctor the other thing. Doctor is both a professional title, which Eric Berg is entitled to use.
He's a chiropractor.
He's a chiropractor. He is not an allopathic physician, and he cannot write prescriptions for drugs, for example. So when we're talking about that kind of drug, that's not what he does. And that's also not a disparagement in and of itself of Eric Berg. I'm just making it clear what Eric Berg's expertise is, and it's chiropractic treatment.
Well, on his behalf, I will say that most of his advice that I have seen is pretty traditional low carb advice. And it doesn't matter who that comes from, it's still correct. And if he has followers that are taking his low carb advice, then yes, I can understand why they may have been helped. They may have lost weight. Their diabetes may have gone away and all that stuff. So in that respect, I don't think the man is that. I wouldn't go so far as to call him a fraud. What I would call him is a very sharp businessman and a religious. He's a Scientologist, and he has a son that has put out a video about him talking about the abuse, and a lot of people got turned off to him because of that. A lot of people got turned off because a lot of the money that he makes selling his supplements and everything funds Scientology. I had personal experience. I used to live near Clearwater, Florida, where their headquarters are. And I used to run into these. They were cultists of the highest order. They were spooky people, always scary, spooky. But I'm not trying to disparage the guy at all. I just think that he overdid the news that was old news and just ruffled everybody up and got everybody panicking. Like, anyway, it sure riled me up this morning, and I certainly calmed down now, and I'm going to just keep plugging along. And if something happens, if all of a sudden I get no views and no subs anymore, and I'm doing live streams with 2 people in, then I go back to being a 77-year-old retired guy. But I enjoy this, and so far it's gone pretty good, and people seem to like what I'm doing. And some videos get tons of views, some videos don't. You know what? Believe it or not, I'm turning into Martha Stewart. The videos where I actually just bang around the kitchen and cook something are the videos that get the most views for me. So I'm beginning to think that most of the people that out there they're not interested in the science so much as the practical application. I don't want to know why it works. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do. It's like driving a car. I don't want to know all the principles of how an internal combustion engine works. I want to know which pedal do I push. And that's the majority. That seems to be the majority of people out there, that they like the practical stuff. So, I put out one video that said, I'm just going to take you on a tour of my kitchen. And I took the little camera, I walked over my kitchen. This is what I keep in my fridge. This is what I keep in my pantry. This is what I cook with. These are the appliances I use. These are the 50,000 views I got on that video. I put out a video where I want to talk about how to develop the correct mindset. And I start talking about psychology. I start talking about how the psychology of addiction, how the brain can just shut down the frontal lobe on you when it wants to, and throw an idea in your head and you just go along with it. Yeah, ice cream at 3 a.m. is a great idea. I'll just do it this last one time and it'll be okay. As I found myself driving to the all-night drugstore, to buy a half a gallon ice cream. And then when it's done with you, it turns that little frontal lobe back over to you. And then you have the enjoyment of the guilt and shame. And you're asking yourself, what the hell was I thinking? That one question what was I thinking? Well, the problem was you weren't thinking, and you weren't thinking. You want to know why you weren't thinking? Let me tell you how the chemistry of that works. And that's where I lose people. That's where they're not interested. They're not interested in that. For me, I find it easier to accept something if I understand the mechanics of it, understand why it happens. That way, maybe I can do something to avoid it happening. But most people aren't like that. So those videos, you get a couple thousand views. I throw a chuck steak in a slow cooker, I get 135,000 views. So what I'm telling you, Bart, is get a slow cooker, Get a chuck steak. Give it a whirl. Prove my theory.
Maybe I will.
Let's see if it works.
Well, there's nothing evil necessarily inherently about that, for the most part, and as such, it doesn't get handbraked by the algorithm, and it gets organic reach, I guess, is what it is.
Well, I think there's a lot more people out there looking for. We are so food centric that in our world, I mean, I can't even imagine the cavemen dwelt on, even though they had no food security, that in essence, they lived every day not knowing if there was going to be a meal tomorrow because they had to succeed in the hunt. I doubt that they worried about food as much as we do. I really do. I think they were much happier back then. They were much more chill. They just knew that, I got to hunt tomorrow. I've hunted before. I can hunt. It'll be okay. And then just went on living their lives. Today, I developed my own little test. You know you're a food addict if. And it had like 12 questions on it. And most of similar to the questions of most of these tests. But I put things like cooking is your hobby, things that were a little oddball questions. And I doubt there was a human being on the planet that took that test other than somebody on carnivore that could basically and really answer no to every one of those questions. And that was what amazed me is I had 12 questions on there and nobody could pass that test. Everybody who watched that video and commented about what they all had to admit, yes, I'm a food addict. And I often eat foods even if I don't want to eat them. That kind of question, a little psychological twist in there. But I looked at those questions after I wrote them out and I said to myself, this is amazing, but you can legitimately, without conning yourself, answer no to every one of those questions. And my answer to almost every one of those questions was a yes a year ago. And that's the most profound change that I've noticed in myself is not just the physical things, not just putting on a little muscle or losing weight, but the whole change of my relationship with food. I have no addictions. Ever do I ever feel, God, I'd like to have something else. In fact, I was eating cheese. I said, no, I don't need cheese anymore. I keep whittling down the different foods I eat to where everybody would say, well, how can you do that? I eat bacon and eggs every day. I eat a lot of red meat. I alternate between ribeyes and hamburger. And once a week, I have some salmon or I'll throw some sardines in my eggs. And I look forward to that food as much as I used to look forward to going out to a buffet restaurant and having a big feast. And it happened that I noticed it happened. And I'm still trying to come to terms with why did it happen? Why does that happen to us, Bart? That's more your arena than mine.
Well, it's one of those great ineffables, isn't it?
I have a theory.
Yeah, go on.
Well, my theory is after I spent all this time thinking and reading and studying, and I'm very big into evolutionary biology. I mean, I wrote a book 20 years ago called Taming the Beast Within. And it's in that book, I did my best to explain human behavior and where it all came from an evolutionary perspective. And every time I look at an animal, I always look to see how much behavior we still have, even if we suppress it, that doesn't mimic the way that animal acts and reacts without the conscious mind trying to control it. So I wrote a whole book about this, and it's been a fascination to me all my life. This evolutionary biology. I've read all the paleoanthropology stuff. I've studied on all of the stable isotope analysis, how they know what these people were eating 300,000 years ago. I mean, I've really, just out of sheer fascination, delved into that science. And I know darn well that medical professionals today have done nowhere near the studying that people in our space, people that like Ken Berry, he's as fascinated by this, and I'm sure you are too, because that's where the secrets lie. Because if you can figure out where either a physical trait, a chemical pathway, a behavior, where that came up the evolutionary chain, you then can understand the why that we behave that way. So I am trying to figure out exactly, and I came to the conclusion that it's simply, and I could be totally off base in this, but you know how it is when you said you and I probably share. I don't know about you, my brain never stops. I'm always trying to figure things out. I can't just sit down and relax and shut my head off. There's always something going on in there. And I think it's as simple, and I could be wrong, but I think it's as simple as being completely nourished. To have every amino acid, for example, where it's needed in every cell. So when protein synthesis is going on, when the ribosome's doing its job, and it's picking the amino acids out of the cytoplasm and assembling them into a peptide chain. Have I got the terms right here?
Oh, yeah. So far, yeah.
Okay. And that peptide chain is a ticker tape, like a computer punch tape. It is a string, and it can be tens of thousands of molecules long. Every amino acid has to be right where it's needed. And if you have not gotten that particular amino acid into your body, it's missing. And it's like trying to build a house and you run out of bricks halfway up the wall. There's no other way to finish building that wall. So that wall never gets finished. And I think that there aren't a lot of human beings running around right now, save for carnivores, that are actually eating enough of the right foods to really have all the building materials they need, or very close to all of them, in every cell of their body, where it's needed, when it's needed, to build the little machinery of life. And when I learned about DNA transcription, messenger RNA, when I learned how all of that chemistry works and how it marvels, it's so marvelous to think that that's going on at such just a molecular level in every cell of our body, trillions of cells, at speeds. How fast does the inside of the ATP synthase spin?
Oh, I wouldn't even know the names.
When it makes ATP. Yeah, I read somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 RPM.
Right, yeah.
Inside every chromosome, inside every...
mitochondria.
Mitochondria, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm 76. That can happen to me. They call that a senior moment.
Do they?
Inside every mitochondria, and there's hundreds of them in every cell. And these little machines that are basically built from proteins that do physical things. The little things that walk up the microtubules in your muscle fibers and make it so you can move your arm. That stuff, nobody. I just keep wanting to learn more about that stuff. And all that stuff needs certain things to be where they need to be at exactly the right time. And I think that there are very few, if any, completely nourished human beings on this planet, especially eating the garbage that we're eating now. And another thing that's happened to human beings, I believe, is that we are trying real hard to turn ourselves into plants by substituting plant material and plant sterols for where human sterols should be, cholesterol should be. I can go out in the sun now and stand out in the sun and I don't burn anymore. You know what I mean? I don't burn.
Yeah.
Why is that? My skin cells are made out of what they're supposed to be. Is that maybe it? Anyway, don't wind me up. I get going and.
Right. I'm sure you do, Mitch. And I think we'll have you back another occasion to follow some more rabbits down some more rabbit holes and see what's what. In the meantime,
I'd like that.
Our time here has elapsed. I want to
Has
thank
it
you.
really?
Yep. I want to thank you very much for your very valuable time today, Mitch. Thank you for the cross-pollination. Thanks for introducing some of your older folks to some of my material. Mitch's folks, you're more than welcome to sub over here as well if you don't already. Fair warning, I do use some short words on my channel from time to time. I'm very expressive.
That's why I watch you.
There you go.
That's the only reason I watch it.
Yeah. All right. So, yep. And those are my folks who are not subscribed to Mitch. They should go and do that, and we'll keep this bloody thing alive somehow. Yep. All right. In the meantime, nice to see you. See you next time.
Good to see you. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye, nicely. He's a strange boy, is Ted. He really is.